Well, the big news in Nigeria now is that the ruling All Progressives Congress has pegged the prize for the presidential nomination form at 100 million naira. Keep in mind, when President Buhari came on the saddle, it was just 20 million naira, and the president also complained of his inability to purchase the form until people came to his aid. But by 2023, it will be 30 years since Nigerians were denied a shot at a truly desired democracy. The events of that year have become a staple in Nigerian politics and a point of reference to many. The year 1999 heralded a new dispensation and a chance for Nigeria to take a shot at democracy again. There's been highs and lows, celebrations and blows in the last 23 years of uninterrupted democracy. Finding the ideal presidential candidate for many names who have thrown their hearts in the ring is a tasking job. These aspirants are going round projecting their qualities, proffering solutions, and telling how they'll turn Nigeria around, but the promises they bear tell familiar tales. What sets an aspirant apart? What fuels the electorate support? Who's the ideal candidate? Welcome to VSA. I'm Suleiman. You know, the names are endless, and the announcement of ambitions is fast becoming normal to Nigerians. From sitting governors to lawmakers, businessmen, former and current ministers, and lots more, a presidential ambition is fast becoming the most common announcement to make in Nigeria at the moment. While parties have set dates to choose who their candidates will be, Nigerians look forward to these parties' choices. The main players in the election, the electorates, also have important choices to make. A troubled country like Nigeria seeks desperate measures to right its wrongs, but who is a candidate who looks the most qualified, experienced, capable, and healthy enough for the difficult task ahead? What should Nigerians look to seek from their leader in policies, understanding, and a track record of excellence? Now, with me in the studio is Ferdinand Orleans-Lindsay. He's the director, Concordia Journal, from the United States, and Ejike Okpa, who's also a global affairs analyst, joining me live from Dallas, Texas. Gentlemen, good to see you both, and thanks for making it live to the studio, Oliver. Now, let's start by asking Ejike, I'm quite sure the news, you must have heard the news in Nigeria, but again, there have been enough discussions centered around policies and systems of governance so far. Does any imply anything to you so far?
Thank you for having me on the show. If I understand your question correctly, is there anything there to be excited about? This is me paraphrasing about the Nigerian political structure or experience for now. I'm coming on 23 years since 1999? No. What you see is a personality context. These are a bunch of people who are, for whatever reason, always remain on the stage. And they are the ones ruling Nigeria at the same time ruining Nigeria. Because when you look at the indicators of democracy since 1999, what is there to be excited about Nigeria? The naira is almost becoming a worthless convertible currency. Unemployment, since Buhari, a former general, has took over, terrorism, public safety has become an issue. So what is there to be excited about Nigeria or Nigerians? And the array of people that are showing up to succeed him through selection, because Nigeria doesn't have any very good election process. What is there to be expected or be excited about? Myself looking from afar, granted that I've been out of the country for more than 30 years, but I visit often and I'm tuned in onto what is going on. It is very disheartening to see the most populous Black nation in the world not being able to garner the sort of reputation to even become a regional, influence in West Africa. It's very, very unfortunate. And I don't know what needs to happen for Nigeria to get its act together, because Nigeria is a laughing stock. And that has continued, and he has no chance. I mean, look at the people. A whole lot of them are facing EFCC allegations of fraud, but they are still wanting to run. So how do you reconcile that? It is very, very depressing. But I'll shut up for now and see what else the guest says, or what other questions asked of me.
All right, thank you very much, Ejike. And coming to you, Ferdinand, what Nigerians are looking at the moment is if there is a leadership recruitment process that will actually birth the next set of leaders. Listen to Ejike. He said he's been gone, for decades, yet it looks like nothing has actually worked till this moment. So what should Nigerians be looking at in trying to, reverse the trend?
Thanks for having me on the show. I have to say that listening to my colleague on the other side of the Atlantic, I have to agree with almost everything that he has said. Nigerians probably have nothing to be excited about, because it seems like more of the same. The same thing has happened every election cycle, and we have tended to get the same kind of personality, old, set in their ways, not really possessed of any ideas or an ideal that people could buy into. And it seems to me, I'm sorry to say that, but it seems to me that in this cycle as well, the candidates that are being offered, none of them bring about any excitement. What Nigeria really needs at the moment is a complete overhaul of its systems. The leadership is just too old, just too set in their ways. And the world is advancing at such a terrific pace that you need people who are nimble on their feet. There are so many willing, able, and ready young Nigerians all over the world. They have left the country to go and help other countries develop themselves. These are the people we need in Nigeria. But they can't stay here because almost all avenues are blocked for them. So what do? They go away and they leave the playground for these geriatrics to continue doing what they do best: loot the economy, stand in the way of progress, and essentially maintain the status quo as it has always been. And I'm afraid, like I said, I'm sorry to have to agree with the gentleman who just spoke. There's really nothing exciting to be expected of the next election, because I suspect that we'll have the same crop of leaders who will come about with the same thing. I was quite shocked when I arrived in Lagos a few days ago and got out of the aircraft at the airport. We just walked out of the airport into a terminal that was in darkness. I'm talking about an airport, an international airport, the gateway to the country, in darkness. It's just so frustrating. Nigeria has always been supposed to be the engine of Africa.
That's all it's supposed to be.
Of course. I mean, just think about it. Look at the size of the country. Look at the size of the population. Look at its natural resource endowment. There is absolutely no reason why Nigeria shouldn't have been the engine of Africa ages ago. And as far as I can see from everything that's going on, it looks like we're not going to do it. And I don't know why. Because there is absolutely no reason why Nigeria shouldn't be able to do it.
Ejike, let me come to you. I think some of the things that Ferdinand just said, I think resonate with me because I've had this conversation with you, and it has to do with, though he hasn't used that exact word as yourself, you used the word, you said, the docility of Nigerians. Nigerians are docile to the extent that they take everything that is thrown at them. Now, let's start talking about, some of the anomalies which Nigerians have had to contend with, for decades now, and ask the question, do you think Nigerians are ready for a change?
Thank you for the question, and then thank you, my fellow guests on the commentary. This is about how does the world most populous Black nation, Nigeria, if you look at the statistics about countries that have 100 million plus, Nigeria is number 7. But if you look at countries of that size, Nigeria is at the bottom of it. Even as a member of OPEC, Nigeria is the poorest oil exporting country. Even though the chant on the street is about, we are the largest oil producer in Africa. Nigerians love this, word of large, big, but at the end of it, there's nothing to it. So are Nigerians ready for change? Of course, Nigerians have been ready for change ever since they got together as a country since 1914. But the thing is, who are the people that have been leading Nigeria, that have been speaking on behalf of Nigeria? Let's go back to 1970 when the Civil War ended. Was that 52 years ago? So let's start to look at all the heads of state and then the president. Who among this class of men have inspired Nigerians? Is it Obasanjo? Is it Obasanjo who had the chance of being the first person to have served as a military head of state and then ended up as a civilian president? What did he do? What exactly did he bring to the table? Yes, he helped to form EFCC. And then thereafter, and then what? So you look at Nigerians are very tribal. Tribal people don't build nations. You have to migrate to the level of citizenship because citizens look beyond their tribal identity. Nigerians have this inexcusable way of their tribe. Look at the lineup. You go to the House of Assembly, you go to House of Representatives, you go to the Senate. You could stand there and say, he is a Calabar man, he's the German, he's this, he's that. How are you going to neutralize that visible factor that tend to make Nigerians take inward? That's the fact. It doesn't, someone say, okay, let's zone it, let's bring these people from this region. It doesn't matter. We are looking for the Nigerian who will speak to the heart of Nigerians, who will know the responsibility is about serving the people, not them. Look at Buhari. Since he came into office, where does he go for medical checkup? And Nigerians go around promoting, we have some of the best doctors, we have some of the best engineers. But your own president does not trust you to even diagnose the simple health issue he has. Then you look at China. Who is building the infrastructure in Nigeria? And then you have Nigerian engineers that are all over the place, throwing out PhDs and all these other things, and yet somebody is building your infrastructure, and you haven't come up with an idea to pass a legislation that says this is not going to happen. If you award a contract to a foreign institution that our own people can do, we're not going to back you. Nigerians are, the docile aspect of Nigeria is why they are abused from the village level. Their Igwes, their Amainabos, their Obas, their NS, everybody abuses Nigerians. Then you talk about the people who now have the constitutional role of being your governor and everything. Then they just heap it on you because Nigerians let abuse become part of their tradition. Until they resist that from their family levels, talk to their father, challenge their village teachers, and everybody, nothing is going to change. Because the people that are ruling Nigerians are not ghosts. They are Nigerians. They are people you and I went to school with. But as soon as they get into that, Your Excellency title, what is excellent about Nigeria? What is excellent about what they say, Your Excellency? Nigerians have to start speaking up. A white man is not going to come there and do it. A white man is not going to tell them anything because they do it, they say, oh, you are racist. Nigerians have to take up the challenge of transforming their country. What is going on now is a political transaction. Look at the Igbo states. Do you know for the past 23 years, the Igbo states have got more money per square mile in terms of the aggregate budget size than the state of Texas has gotten in the same period? What is there any major industry in that part of Nigeria? All they keep doing is agitating for more states, as if you give them more states, that's going to solve their own inability to understand there's a difference between governance and government. The Igbo states have spent more than $90 billion in aggregate budget for an area no more than 14,000 square miles. You do the math. Our Igbos challenge, the Igbos go around, oh, we're the smartest Nigerians. What is in their part of Nigeria? If you give them Biafra, are they going to do better? The Igbos are still the ones that remind you of your state of origin. So there are a lot of challenges that Nigerians don't like. Nigerians love this common enemy. Oh, it's the Yoruba man, it's the Fulani man, but they are not even addressing their own issue. Let's take back. Who has been the minister that's killed in office and that murder case has not been solved? Bola Ige. And it happened when Obasanjo was president. If Bola Ige had died when it was a non-Yoruba, the Yoruba would have been on the street chanting, just like they did for Abiola. But since it was their own tribal man, they have kept quiet. So what does that tell you? If you're going to change yourself, you have to start from within. So Nigerians are docile. I'm saying it. It's not to offend anybody, but if you're offended, prove me wrong. Because they can't even take on their own family man or their own tribal man. That's where the change starts. The Fulani man is not the reason Nigeria is where it is. It's because the Nigerians let it happen. So, again, everybody wants something good. But for something good to happen, you have to start from within. If you make all the Yoruba or Duduwa people their own state, is it going to work? If you make all the northern people their own, is it going to work? If you create a country out of every compound in Nigeria and give them their own oil well, do you think it's going to work? They're still going to remind themselves, oh, your mama is number one or your papa is number two. That's how the Nigerian psyche have been programmed to think. And that's why they are never going to be able to emerge from the tribal mentality that is still holding them back.
Let me bring in Ferdinand here, and it has to do with some of the things that you've highlighted, Ejike. You also, just recently we spoke with Dr. Omobalaji Popola about the family. Now, you said, let's take this away from the country. He's put the blame on everyone, even the family unit. And it's very important here and instructive that Nigeria really, in building Nigeria, it looks as if the finger is pointing at everyone.
Right.
And I'm more excited you're here in Lagos. You must have seen, things that would make you wonder and ask yourself if this is 2022. Now, let's go back to some of the key things. Our takeaway is, it's almost rare to see candidates with excellent, ideas, but low political clout emerging, which is very disturbing. Is there an excessive focus on politicking in Nigeria? To the extent that we lose out on the crux of the matter?
Well, whether there's excessive politicking is a moot point, because how can you do politics without politicking? It's just the nature of the politicking that one finds offensive sometimes. But I have to say that I'm a little disappointed in myself, that I find myself agreeing with much of what the gentleman has been saying in relation to Nigerians' docility. That is true. It is true that Nigerians seem to have a capacity to take so much abuse from their governing classes. And sometimes you wonder what it is that makes that happen. And I've given it some thought over the years. And it seems to me that the most important thing that sticks out as to why Nigerians have become sort of used to taking abuse is that ever since independence, there has been so much violence visited on the populace by those in government that I think over time people have become frightened that if they shout, if they say anything, if they protest about the obvious inequities that occur, the same violence will be visited on them. I remember the period when Abacha was head of state, and the course of events that ultimately ended up with Ken Saro-Wiwa being murdered. I mean, the fact that such a thing happened in Nigeria and nobody did anything about it. I know the world community made noises and so on, but the world community has never cared about Africa. Africa has always been the breadbasket of the Caucasians as well as now the Chinese. Given time, the Indians as well. Everybody comes to Africa to take. Nobody comes to Africa to give. So ultimately, our salvation would have to be in our own hands. But in Nigeria itself, nobody said anything. The state murdered this gentleman, this absolutely wonderful poet. And what did he do? All he wanted was a good deal for his people, for the people that lived in his area. That's all he wanted. He didn't want to stage a coup. He didn't want to separate state. All he wanted was fairness. And they murdered him. And the way they did was so that others would keep quiet. Others would learn the lesson that if you complain, this is what will happen to you. And so if you ask me, why are Nigerians so docile? Just think back from Idi Agbon's time all the way through, all the military governments that have been in position in Nigeria. Violence was the first go-to measure that the government, the state used to keep the people cowed. And then, of course, when the civilians came into power, they haven't learned from the military boards. They employed exactly the same methods. So any minor infringement, you find yourself being essentially beaten up by the state, and there is no recourse. And so that, as far as I can see, is the reason why Nigerians are so docile. Because I mean, who's going to be able to withstand the power of the state if the state has decided that violence is what it's going to meet to you if you ask for your rights? So that is my thought on.
So let me bring in Ejike to weigh on some of the one point you raised, and it has to do with some fantastic Nigerians. He said, well, Nigeria is not in deficit of great minds. Some of them have left the shores of Nigeria to also help other nations get to where they are at the moment, enviable height. Now, why do you think that these same people haven't been reached out to or haven't actually come to see how they can also, dig in deep and help Nigeria get out of the doldrums?
Well, good question. I can give myself as an example. Remember, I am not a Nigerian who left after high school. I left after NYC. I did my youth service. I worked as an estate surveyor. When I was a student in Port Harcourt, I was going to government house, which at the time was manned by Melford Okilo. So, my dad was a chief during the Eastern Nigeria. So I have been close to political people. So I came and I got, was fortunate to get into what I've gotten in US, and I've been going back. You know it. In the past, 6 months or so, I was in Nigeria, 4 times. But what has happened is there's this envy, jealousy that is amongst Nigerians, and then it gets a little more extended and stretched once you are not from the tribe. You know, I was born and raised in Enugu. I'm you know, from Enugu State, you know, the typical Wawa guy. You'll be surprised if, you know, before when we went from East Central State to Anambra State to the various 5 other states, you see Igbos. Now in Enugu State, okay, you know, the question is going to be, are you Enugu North? Are you Enugu South? Are you Enugu West? Before it was like, oh, we're fighting the Ejike people, the Agwenu, the Anambra people. Now you got your own state. You have resorted to the same thing. So Nigerians always try to find a common enemy. That enemy could be real or imagined. And then once, that's what I say, take it down to the families. You know, it becomes the polygamous factor. Oh, mama number 1, mama number 2, mama number 3. And we haven't been able, even with the level of education we have, to emerge out of that petty thought process. You know, so when I came, you know, during the time Nigeria, you know, was having financial crisis in early 1990s, I had just resigned from the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation in US as their regional appraisal manager, who was in charge of liquidating failed financial institution assets. So I came to Nigeria and I met with the managing director of the then Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation. I think it was the Benue State lady. We had a very good conversation. And I said, look, I have done this in US. I know the policies on how, you know, how to forestall a bank failure, because I had written a paper at the time, why banks fail and how to revamp them. And she was excited. She said, oh, there's this, you know, the chairman of NDIC who's going to come to DC and talk to me. Because the guy is a Yoruba man, he never followed up with me. He never followed up with me. So these are the things Nigerians have to address. You know, you have people that get excited, oh, the governor is from my tribe. Our people are ruling. But how is that affecting your paycheck? The governor goes to his village and builds a mansion. What is the economic viability of these huge houses they build? We celebrate nuisance. We celebrate fraud. Because you now say, oh, I'm going to protect my village man, it's our turn to chop. All these chop Nigerians have been doing. At the end of the day, you look at the men and women who have chopped, they are very miserable. That is why a whole lot of them want to get back into power. There is no aftermarket value of any Nigerian foreign minister or president. Do you know of all this noise Nigerians have made about having oil? No Nigerian former president or minister of oil or petroleum or whatever they may call themselves has ever been invited to serve on the board of any of the major oil companies. What does that tell you? They are expendable. They have no collateral experience. So what is happening? Nigerians don't know how to recruit. They don't know how to hold talent. They don't. So they wouldn't come to anywhere Nigerians are doing well and say, hey, oh boy, oh girl, look, what would it take for you to come home and help us? Can we even have a discussion on how we can address some of these issues? The governors come here, and when they come, what do? They just want to do shopping, and then they want to impress some Nigerians, you know, hey, look at me, I have a big house. I don't care how big a house you live. Houses are not economic development. The people need jobs. The people need utilities. The people need opportunity for them to grow and opportunity them to access everything. Not the how big mansion you have, how many cars, or that you fly your family to Dubai to go have a wedding. These are the things that excite Nigerians. And it's very shameful. I was in Nigeria last year when my sister passed, and I went to the University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital. Remember, University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital. The campus they have on the expressway, Enugu Port Harcourt Express. I was depressed. I was saddened. So how can an institution like this that has the name of Nigeria on it be this so deplorable and depressing? Just like the gentleman said, you get to Murtala Mohammed Airport. All of a sudden, you are reminded that Nigerians are dysfunctional. They don't know how to run anything. The airport is the first and the last impression of most travelers. Yeah. So when they get in there and see the conditions the airport is, what they say, then when you start to leave the airport and get into Lagos, what do you see along the way? So, you know, you have the Dangotes, the so-called richest black man in the world. What does he fly into his own private airport? Is it not the same Murtala Mohammed he goes into? Where is his whole corporate office? So Nigerians are very rich, but they are not wealthy people. They are still get caught up on the minor things, their houses, their cars, and whose wedding comes in, and you give them how many gifts, until we leave those tertiary basic things and begin to look at the common good, the commonwealth, the ability that the most successful nations are concerned about the less privileged and the less fortunate, and not the chiefs and the Igwes, not the presidents, not the governors. I met with, what is his name? The present governor of Enugu State, Ugwuanyi. When I walked into his office, I told him, sir, I'm not here for a job. I'm not here for any appointment. I said, I don't need anything from you guys, but is there anything I can help you get done so that you can be a better, governor? The same thing I said to Obasanjo in 1999 when I met him. I said, Mr. President, what can I do to help you become a better president? You know what? He jumped on the microphone and said, look at what this guy said. Because everybody else that met him at that time was handing him a CV. I don't need a job from Obasanjo. I don't need a job from any Nigerian. You come to Dallas, Texas, and see what I do on my own. But I am concerned as a native Nigerian who was fortunate to have gone to school over there and come back and say, oh my God. When I came to America in the 80s, 1 million naira was almost $1.7 million. Yeah. Just put that number in your head. 35 years hence, 1 million naira is worth less than $2,000. Anybody who overlooks that devaluation of the currency and say Nigeria is doing well is something is wrong with their head. They are not in the financial market.
I can readily almost think and see the pain, trying to draw comparison to the 80s and to this particular moment. Ejike and Ferdinand, we'll take a moment. When we come back, I'd like us to see if we can use the last minutes of the show to talk about possible solutions. Yes. That's when we return. Join us again. Well, if you just joined us, you're welcome. You're watching Village Square Africa here on News Central Television. We're talking about developments in Nigeria, especially as the country prepares for the general election in 2023, trying to highlight some of the pains and concerns Nigerians share. And of course, I have with me in the studios Ferdinand Orleans-Lindsay, who is the director of Concordia Journal, and of course, Ejike Okpa, who is a global affairs analyst. Both are based in the United States, but Ferdinand is right here with me. Now, quickly, let's start talking about some of the, solutions to the myriad of problems. I'll start with you, Ferdinand. We have listened to Ejike and yourself, and I did say, while we were on the break, that sometimes it can be very depressing. Yeah. And if some can feel this way, then it then means that we have a lot of Nigerians who are also feeling maybe worse. Yeah. And what can be done?
I have to say that the bottleneck in leadership of really old geriatric set in their ways apparatchiks, that is the problem. And if we manage to find a way in which we can train a cadre of leadership that does not subscribe to the same model of leadership, the same model of service, the same model of civic activity as has previously taken place. If we manage to do that, and systematically, over time, over a period of time, because obviously it's not going to happen overnight, if we do that systematically over a period of time, I think that we will be able to replace this old leadership with this new, perhaps much more sanguine type of leadership. And it is from the younger generation of leadership that we would expect to be able to get a better deal for the country. Because if we look to the old leadership, we're just going to get more of the same. It's just not going to work.
So in essence, everything, or I think the starting point has to be with the leadership.
Oh, absolutely. See, if you look all around the world, you will find that wherever countries are doing well, they have excellent leadership. Wherever countries are doing well, they have a throughput of young replacement for their leadership. So it is very rare to see in any successful country leaders that are in their 60s and 70s and 80s. I mean, America has a funny situation where the two top leaders there are in their 70s. But these are aberrations. You know, Kennedy in the United States was in his 40s. Obama left recently. He wasn't 50 when he left. So there is something about the modern world that requires the agility, the resilience of youth. And if you are old and set in your ways, the pace of change that is going on in the world becomes a problem for you. So you tend to fight against that pace of change when you are supposed to be fighting in concert with that change, so that ultimately you will take the full benefit, you derive the full benefit for your country and for your people. All right, so it has to be with the youth. Africa's leadership is way too old. Look at the Ivory Coast has a leader who's in his 80s. Uganda has a leader who's in his 80s. He's been there forever. You look around, they are so old and set in their ways. And somehow they seem to think to themselves that their countries can't survive without them. It's the other way around. Their countries are in the mess they are because of them. And the way to do it is to get rid of all this mess that Africa is in, is to try and bring in a cadre of younger people, you know, who are agile, who understand the way the world is going. Because let's face it, the world belongs to them. It's their world. These old elderly folks that are refusing to go, they will all be gone. In the next 10 years, they will all be gone. And yet, within 10 years, they can make our countries hell by staying in position. So it has to be with the youth. And as far as I'm able to, I will keep preaching this thing about making sure that the youth get a look in. When they get a look in, that's how you get innovation, young, fresh ideas. You know, there's a certain way that the mind works, and at a certain point in your development, you begin to want to play it safe. The world doesn't play it safe. Change is always happening in the world. If you look at nature, it's every time there's some change going on. All right. So if you don't have the human capital that is equipped for this change, there's going to be trouble right along the way.
Okay, let me bring in Ejike here. Ejike, you know, now we're talking about, you know, solution-driven conversation now going forward, and Ferdinand has actually, you know, talked more about the leadership, which is very key here and instructive, which you have also spoken about. Now, basically, what's doable, you know, in the foreseeable future for Nigeria and Nigerians?
Well, every politics is local. Okay, you look at Nigeria. Who are the people that are effectively ruling Nigeria and ruling it? 36 plus 1 men. 1 president and 36 governors. In fact, sometimes governors are even more powerful because, I mean, at least the president might get some little, you know, resistance from the Senate as well as the House of Representatives. But the governors in their various states, I mean, the House of Assemblies are weak. The judiciary practically don't exist. But here's something that I have written about and I've suggested. In order to cramp and remove, you know, these politics of the purse Nigerians play, every state now should start having issue elections. Okay, Nigerians don't have issue elections; they have personality elections. So every state should have the right to now go in and start having discussions, elections. How do you want our governors to govern us? How do you want our governors to be paid? You should clamp that, okay? For instance, if a state has a budget of 1 billion, which 70, how many percent, 70% or 80% of Nigerian states don't have. Let's say use that number for the sake of an argument. You could say to run the government house is 2%. 2%. Okay, what's that? 2% of 1 billion, $20 million. That's all the governor gets to run the government house. If he wants to spend that money with himself and his wife, that's their business. So what you have now, Nigeria run what they call benevolent democracy. What happens in that country is dependent on the wish of these 37 men. If they choose to go to Dubai for medical checkup, or like Buhari has shown Nigerians, that he wants to go treatment, that's what they do. So you have to cap their access to public money. And you begin to introduce agency democracy, where the various authorized government agencies get their money and they're only accountable to the state assembly or the public, not to where the governor decides how much money they spend or when they spend it. That's a solution. And then the other one is, the issue of election. Elections have to be decided on a very fiat, time-sensitive schedule. Not so where, you look at what got Peter Obi to the stage. He challenged the Anambra election, and all of a sudden, when he won it, he said, "Oh, I need to get my own, my own 4-term or 8-term." That shouldn't be the case. Okay, you have an election timetable. If election is done in January, you have 2 weeks. Two things: if the candidate is challenging that the election outcome on his own person, he pays certain amount of money. If it's the party that is challenging it, they pay certain amount of money. And then you constitute the immediate, judges in that state, okay, to receive the petition within a certain time and dispose of it within a certain time, so that it does not affect the swearing-in date, whereby all these governors are doing this, or some governor will get in and all of a sudden the court comes in and say, "Get out, it's not you, you didn't win." We shouldn't be having that. That's a solution, and that should be done at the state levels. The only thing Nigerians vote together is not that of the president. Even the senators are in districts in their own various senatorial districts in their own various states. So that's the federal. And so every state election issue is supposed to be resolved in the state before the swearing-in date, so that whomever gets in there, whether by default or design, you get to rule or run for your period, and not to where while you're already in, they say, "Oh, you didn't win, you get out."
Ejike, let me throw this in. I'm sure you must have, Ejike, this is to you. I'm sure you must have also seen the concern of young Nigerians trying to see if they can have a force, talking about a political movement. But it seemed to be, something more or less like a pipe dream. So it's more or less now like a two-party system in Nigeria, the ruling APC and the opposition, the PDP. And so how can these people who are so concerned, watching you at the moment, pull together and get a force that will also, make a big statement in an election?
Well, again, is the old versus the new. But the concern I have about the Nigerian person, okay, let's just look at chronological age. Somebody who was born in 1970, how old is that Nigerian today? 50 years old. Okay, so let's just look at formative ages and impacts on their life. In 1985, when they are 15 years old, who was there? Babangida having overthrown Buhari. Babangida was the one that introduced this "you chop, I chop" mentality. Okay, so he wasn't a good influence. Okay, Babangida modeled up whatever he did, and then comes in, there was this controversy to up until 1990 or early 90s. He wanted to experiment with military head of state and civilian government. That didn't go too far. And then, of course, the election that, MK Abiola said he was won, and then it led to the controversy where they brought in Shonekon as interim, and boom, who comes in? So I'm just saying, The Nigerian of 1970, by the time he or she is 25 years old, has not had any good example of any Nigerian leader.
True.
Okay? And then you get to when they are turning 30. Who did they see again? Obasanjo. When they're 29 and 30 is Obasanjo. What did Obasanjo do? So you're talking about this new generation. What has been their positive influence? Who has influenced them to something that is good? Is it their own parents? A lot of Nigerians are not even able to ask their Papa, all this money you are bringing in, how is it coming? Or their wives. Once the man comes in with some kind of Rolls Royce or some big car, they call a pastor, let's go celebrate, God has blessed us, blah, blah, blah. So if you don't begin to address these things from the home, the success of every successful nation starts from the family. The society does not exist without the family. The Nigerian family is very fractured, is very fragmented, and is very focused on the wrong things. Okay? The man comes home, all of a sudden he has all this money. How many Nigerian wives will say, "Oga, what happened here?" Or the sons. Instead, they start celebrating. So until you address the core, before anybody becomes your governor, your senator, your president, is somebody's son, somebody's daughter. So have they given account to their families? How many Nigerian men have sat down with their wives or their family and said, "Hey, this is how much money is coming in, this is how we're spending it"? How many? So now they become your big people on the top. Are they going to give you account? One thing that Nigerians don't like to give account. Go ask any governor, how did you spend the money? How this money you are giving to village A and village B, is a part of the budget? All of a sudden you become an enemy. It's because they never in their life learned how to be accountable. Is it not Tinubu? Some years ago, they said he had a bullion truck moving money from, and now he's showing up to want to run for president, and Nigerians are still clamoring for him. People are going to abuse you when they figure that you have no way to even question them. And that's what Nigerians are. Nigerians are very easily impressed. The people that are stealing from them will throw a party. Nigerians are gathered there to eat rice and drink beer that is not cold. And then they give the man or the woman more tithe. Resist those things.
Ejike, you got me there. Beer that is not cold.
Yes, in a tropical weather, they are drinking it and their eyes are popping. So what I'm just saying, when they steal from you and throw a party, don't go. Begin to show them, hey, the rice I've eaten in your house for one day, how about the 365 other days? Shun them. Shun them. Don't go to their party. Don't celebrate their anything. And then it's very insulting that people like Babangida and Obasanjo and Atiku are being consulted on current issues about Nigeria. Those people are dead in the head. What do they know to do? Stop calling them. You guys that are in the media, stop interviewing them. If they say anything, don't report it. Ignore them. That's how you're going to put them in the rearview mirror. Let them go with the sunset. But as long as you guys keep going back to them, asking them opinion, what do they think? Why should you seek an opinion for them when they have no good examples to give you? Why? No, tell me. So you begin to ignore them, the media, especially in Nigeria, because the media is always writing about this. When I read the Nigerian newspaper, I get a headache out of it. So why are you consulting Babangida? The man who's in a wheelchair, he probably doesn't know anything anymore. And then what is his name? Abubakar? And then you go to Obasanjo? No, say, hey, thank you for what you have done on this country. We're going to prove you why you are alive. Or go on. We're going to show you that we Nigerians have recognized what we need to do now. And thank God for you to be alive, and we're going to do better things. But you still go into them, and bowing to them and let them touch you. Oh my God. No.
Let me bring in Ferdinand here for his closing, word on this. Ferdinand, I know young Nigerians need people like yourself and Ejike to keep talking. And the good thing is that the continent is excited having people, to speak and remind them of how to get on, the wheels and take charge to the extent that generations yet unborn will be excited about what they're... Because listening to Ejike, and he's painted a gloomy picture, which is actually the truth.
Yes, it's a very accurate picture.
Yes.
I'm sorry to say. what I'd like to say to young Nigerians
Good.
is by way of a short narrative. When I lived in Lagos, I lived in Apapa, and during that time, it was a lovely little community, totally different from Victoria Island or Ikoyi or Surulere. It had its own vibe. And on a Saturday, you came out to the shopping area in Apapa, and you saw people from all walks of life, mostly senior civil servants, expatriates, people who were running shops and stalls where they sold Lebanese condiments and so on. It was really lovely. And if you wanted to get from there to either Victoria Island or Ikoyi, you just went onto the bridge, you drove quickly onto the bridge and you were there.
I like that. Quickly.
Yes. 30 years on, I have come back to drive on that same bridge. I promise you, nothing has been done to that bridge in 30 years. And it has deteriorated so badly that I fear it might just give up one of these days and we will hear about a catastrophe that has affected the people who were on it at that time.
If you don't mind, let me interject here because I was on the bridge and things actually have changed. They have a new bridge around the Apapa axis and the Apapa area. But the thing now is that the people have refused to move. They're selling cars, wares, and all kinds of business to the extent that the trucks, they're still parked there. So we went around that area and we realized that the roads are back in shape, but the people haven't actually left that area.
Yeah, okay. Now, I wasn't aware of this, but the point I was seeking to make was that bridge has never been maintained up until now. And now that you tell me there's a new bridge that has been built, that makes it even worse. Because you don't just leave things unmaintained and build new things. All I saw right around Lagos as I drove around were these wonderful new buildings being built. And the old buildings are still there. None of them have been painted, none of them have been maintained. So my message to young people is that by all means think about the new, but don't forget about the old things that you want to build on them. If you are going to tear them down and rebuild new structures and so on, that's fine. But don't just leave them there, sitting there. Because the infrastructure that is constituted in that bridge, for instance, it was money that went into investing into that infrastructure. If you just let it go and build a new one, you are actually operating at a loss. So my message to young people is get this notion that you can maintain things and add on to them. Don't always look for the new things, the new shiny things and so on, because they are not always the best. Because some of these bridges, they look absolutely beautiful, but they are so dilapidated that some of them have become eyesores. And yet, with just a little bit of maintenance, they could have added to the stock of infrastructure in Lagos and made driving up and down the streets of Lagos
I know we're out of time. If I allowed Ejike, I remember Ejike had also talked about Lagos not having a sewage system. So, Ejike, I'm hoping we'll have a part 2 of this, if you don't mind, because as Ferdinand said, we should keep talking, and information is key here. It's very powerful. It should be able to help Nigerians get out of what it is going through at the moment. I'd like to thank.
1 hour is hardly enough time to do it, but in life, talking is very important.
Absolutely.
It depends on what you're talking about, who
Absolutely.
you're talking with, and all of that. And I'm hoping Nigerians begin to recognize that, the faith and the reputation of the country is on them. It's
Absolutely.
not on the 37 men, it is on Nigeria, because once you're outside of Nigeria, the reputation is not very good.
So
So
apologies, we're out of time, but again, I know Ejike will always do this again. Ferdinand and Ejike will be back again. Many thanks for your time. Suleiman, thanks for watching.
Thank you.
thank you.